everyone, welcome back to my channel. First of all, happy new year. We made it to 2025, guys. What the hell? Today we're gonna go through all the books that I've read in 2024. We're gonna go through every single book I've read this year. I have them in order of how I've read them. I'm just gonna grab them and show them to you, and we're gonna go quick. I have read 66 books in total this year, which is quite a lot for me. First two, actually, I don't own the physical copies, are Misfit and Rogue. Misfit and Rogue are by Elle Kennedy, and I really enjoyed them. I do enjoy Elle Kennedy's writing, and it was just a great palate cleanser, and it's a duology for now, but it's not completed, but I don't know if she's ever gonna release more of the series. It has a bit of a mystery, romance, friend group, and it's just like Elle Kennedy does those so well. They're very good, very easy, very quick to read. Next book that I read is one of my favorite of all time, Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. So good. I loved it so much. I strongly recommend reading this book. It made me laugh, it made me cry. It was so different from anything else I've ever read before. Next, I have read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. So far, I think that was my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book I read. It was okay. It just didn't really do much for me. I just didn't love the female main character, but I really did like him in the book. Next, it was a reread, and I reread Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I really enjoyed this book way more than the rest of it, but we're going to talk about them later. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book, but it is kind of a copycat of a lot of books mixed together. Yes, for sure. But it's fun. And I reread it because I was annotating it for a friend of mine. And then there was another reread, and it was House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. I reread this because it had been 2 years since I read it, and obviously Flaming Shadow was coming out, so I was like, I need to go over it. So I reread this one. I love it. It's a 5-star for me. The ending is insane. The whole series I really love. I think it's the most underrated Sarah J Maas series. Read Crescent City. It's a lot of information, it's a lot, but it's a good a lot. Next, I finished the Carvel series reading finale. I don't own the Carvel series because I tried to buy it once and then I got scammed. And then ever since, because I'm petty, I never bought it. But obviously it's no one's fault. I was just silly and I bought from a dodgy website. Anyway, it was my least favorite of the trilogy. I really enjoyed the first book. I just don't love Tella. So when it's about her, I'm just get annoyed because she annoys me. I didn't love the ending. Scarlett and Julian, I loved it. And next, I've read my most anticipated book of the year, which House of Flame and Shadow, that somehow is even bigger than Sky and Breath. I have loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I think because a lot of people set themselves some expectations of things happening that didn't happen. I really loved it. I loved the beginning of it, especially. I need Sarah J Maas to drop a book a year. Please, Sarah, give me more books. Oh, next is such a good one. Next, I read Reckless by Elsie Silver. So I read the Chestnut Spring series in the wrong order on purpose because I read the first one. I liked it, but it wasn't like my favorite. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna jump to the one that everyone loves. And yes, it was a 5-star. It was incredible. One of my favorite romances of all time. Read Reckless by Elsie Silver, please. Oh, next is a good one as well. Next, I read Ruthless Vows. I love these books covers so much. I enjoyed it. I preferred the first one for sure, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like, the writing is beautiful. The writing is so nice. It's a fantasy YA. Their ages bothered me a little bit, but what can you do? But it was beautiful. It was a beautiful book. Next, I read My Mechanical Romance. Where is that? I think I own it. My Mechanical Romance. This actually is from Olivia Blake, but she goes by her real name, which is Alexine Farrell Fulmath. It was a YA romance, very short, very nerdy, very cute, but like high school romances. I think I'm too old now for them, you know what I mean? And then I read my second most anticipated release of the year, which was Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. I loved it. It was my favorite Magnolia Parks book. Not my favorite book in the universe because that's still the last Daisy Hates. Daisy Hates The Great Undoing. But this one was the one that I liked the most from Magnolia's side. And I cried so much. Next is one of my favorite books of the year, which is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I fucking loved it. It's just a good time. A vampire werewolf. It was spicy. It was fun. I loved the couple. Yes. Read Bride. I loved it so much. And then I started the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and this is annotated by my best friend, so it was so fun to read. I didn't love the first book. I liked it, but I wasn't like in it as I thought I was gonna be, but I loved the second one way more. It was okay. It's a YA fantasy, like whimsical, fairy tale-y, and Jax. That's all you need to know. Read it just because of Jax. Extremely hyped on TikTok, but for a good reason, because it's good. And then I started the Like Us series, and I read That Much Like Us and Lovers Like Us. The Like Us series is a spin-off of the Addicted / Callaway Sisters series. It's about their children, and I love it so much. It's so nostalgic. I get to be back in that world with those characters that I grew up with. Oh, I love them so much. The couple from the first 2 books, they actually have like 4 or 5 books in the end, because there's 13 books in the whole series. I love them so much. It's one of my favorite couples that I read about this year. They are so good. 10 out of 10. I strongly recommend the Like Us series. And then I read Archer's Voice. Extremely hyped on TikTok and on YouTube. Very unpopular opinion. I didn't like it. I didn't love it. It was meh for me. No, let's not lie. I didn't like it. Yeah, not for me. Not for me. You may love it, and I'm happy for you if you do, but I didn't. Next, I have read The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. Look how pretty this is. I don't want to talk about this book. I loved it and I hated it. I still don't know how I feel about this book. Months later, I still don't know. Hated how it ended. I loved how it was written. I hated what some characters did. I still don't know how I feel, okay? And I don't think I ever will. Then I read Heartless. Then I went back to the Chestnut Springs and I read the second book, even though I read it third anyway. And I loved it. This was so good. Cowboy romance, small town. This was a single dad nanny, and I loved them. Love them. I still prefer Reckless, but this is my second favorite. It's so good. Then I read the second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. Much better. So much better. This was a 5-star. I loved it. The ending was crazy. Crazy cliffhanger. Love. So much better. So much better. Because A Ballad of Never After ended so crazy, I had to go straight into A Curse for True Love. This was a letdown, unfortunately. I didn't love this. It was okay. It was my least favorite of the 3. I think because in this, Jax was in this way less, and he's the main reason why I like the series. And like obviously because of the repercussions of what happened at the end of the book before, made it annoying, you know. No one's fault, but you know. And then I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. I love this book. This was so cute, so good. I just love Emily Henry's writing. You cannot go wrong with her. I don't think it's my favorite book of hers, but it's one of my favorites. It's so good. It's so hyped, and it should be. It should be hyped. It's so good. Her books are very similar to each other, but somehow they all have differences. Some of the quotes of this book, oh my god. And then I read the third book in the Like Us series called Alphas Like Us, and it's still the same couple of the first 2, so I still loved it. Usually when a couple gets together, it gets boring. Like I don't enjoy reading a book after the couple got together. It gets boring, especially if it's rivals to lovers. The bickering ends, the angst ends, and I don't care about it anymore. Didn't happen in the series. This couple had like 4 or 5 books, and they get together in the first book, and somehow it was still incredible. It was so good. Oh, 10 out of 10. That couple especially, oh, I love them. Then I read Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy, and it's the second book in the Good Girl Complex duology. No, actually trilogy. I think there's third, but I haven't read that one yet. I didn't love this. It's second chance romance, so like it's not my favorite trope. It's very short, so you can quickly get through this. It's okay. It was okay. Nothing special. But I love Elle Kennedy's writing, so I will read whatever she writes. Babel! Then next I read Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is one of my favorite books of all time now, and definitely one of my favorite books of the year, if not my favorite book of the year. So heavy, so many important topics, so many things happen in this book. I cried so much at the end, but I think it's one of those books that everyone has to read at least once. Not lighthearted and fun and cute. No. But then again, I don't feel like R.F. Kuang is lighthearted and fun and cute. And then I read Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is the cover. This is just the arc that I got sent. I loved it so much. It was so fun and different, and I really enjoyed it. Towards the ending, I liked it a bit less, but all around it was great. And it's, once again, Emily Henry's writing. You can't go wrong. Next book I read was One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. I loved this book. I loved this book. A retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but imagine them being witches. And it's an urban fantasy. So good. The writing was so great. So many plot twists. Different romances. Oh, read One for My Enemy. One of the best books I read this year. And then I read Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Unpopular opinion, I didn't care for this book. I didn't care for the couple. I didn't like her. I didn't really care about him either. I don't love billionaire romances, and this was a billionaire romance. And it's supposed to be like single dad, but this guy wasn't a single dad. Don't let them lie to you. This guy wasn't a single dad. He was a sperm donor. That's different. It was okay. Nowhere near the Chestnut Springs, in my opinion, but a lot of people loved it, so it might be me. And then I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which is like the novella for Powerful. No, this is Powerful. Rewind. I read Powerful by Lauren Roberts, which is a novella related to Powerless. It was okay. It's a novella. It's very YA. Powerless didn't feel this YA. This felt so YA. So I think I was a little bit too old for this. And I knew what was happening at the end because of the book before. So I didn't really want to read it because I knew what was happening and it was not good. Then I read Tangled Like Us in the Like Us series. This is the first book of a different couple. And I didn't like this couple nowhere near as much as I liked the one before. So this one was a meh, was okay. I just didn't love them as much. The guy was like half Italian, or like Italian, but he's American. You know, and I never understood how that works. Because they speak an Italian that is not Italian. So I don't know why they think they're Italian. Also, I am Italian. So it bothered me when he would speak in Italian and it would be wrong. So that's all I could think about. I was like, that's not it. That's not how you say it. But it is like a mixture of English and Italian, American and Italian. But it just bothered me a little bit. And then I finally read Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I don't know why I waited so long. This slapped. It was so good. It was a lot. It's so full of information and so much happens. The romance is so slow burn. It's so good. I love the found family element of it. I loved it. Loved it. Because that was quite a heavy book. Like, so much happens. I needed a little cute palate cleanser, and what can I do better than a cowboy romance? Nothing. So I read Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, and I enjoyed it. It was cute. It was easy. So short. So small town romance. And I enjoyed the couple. They were very cute. So... And then I read This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal El Motar. It's so short. I did not like it. I did not like it. I didn't get it. I didn't care for it. I got it because people are like, oh, if you don't like this book, you didn't get it. No, I got it. I got perfectly what was happening. And I didn't care at all. You get dropped into the story and you know nothing of, and then they expect you to like enjoy it. It was just quite pretentious. But if you like it, you definitely have a different taste than me. I don't think it was the right target audience for this. I do love a deep, good book. I don't think this was it. Don't get mad. Then I read a great book, thank God, and it was Crooked Kingdom. I read the second book in the Six of Crows duology. This book was so good. So sad. Something happened that was so sad as well, but it was so good. The found family, just the characters are so good, and you get the point of view of all of them. Then I read the number 5 and 6 of the Like Us series, and they are Sinful Like Us and Headstrong Like Us. Sinful Like Us is about the second couple that I didn't really care about that much. It was okay. I like the writing and I love the world and the characters in it, so I don't mind it too much. I still love it. I still really enjoy reading it because I love everyone in it. I just didn't care about the couple that much. But Headstrong Like Us, we're back to the first couple, so I loved it so much. I think so far this is my favorite book in the series, and I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. This couple just cannot be beaten. And then I read Scythe by Neil Schusterman. I loved this book, loved it so much. I actually really need to read the second book because this ended in such a crazy cliffhanger, and I haven't read the second one still. and I need to because I really enjoyed it. It was a dystopian YA with a bit of romance, crazy world. I really enjoyed it. I just enjoy the world in this so much. Next, I have read The Reappearance of Rachel Price. This is a YA mystery by Holly Jackson. I really enjoyed it, the beginning. At the ending, I found it a little bit disappointing. It is YA, so I don't know if that's why. I thought the end was a little bit unrealistic. I enjoyed the story though. It was fun to read and I was into it. But yeah, the ending was a little bit... And then I read Powerless by Elsie Silva, and it's so far the biggest book in the Chestnut Spring, and it's by far my least favorite. I didn't like it. It was childhood friends to lovers. A lot of spice in it, but it just wasn't good, I think. I didn't care for them. I didn't care about the couple that much, and I really didn't love him. I really had to push through to finish it. I didn't like it. At one point, she had to crawl to him. I didn't like that. And they are kind of cousins. Isn't that weird? I think that's weird. Isn't it weird? That's weird. And then I read One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I loved this so much. This duology is just so good. It's a gothic romantasy and it's so good. And the world and the magic system in this is so unique and I've never seen anything like this before. And I just loved every character. And the couples in this, so good. And then I read Charming Like Us, which is the 7th book of the Like Us series. And I enjoyed it. It was my favorite. This is a third different couple, but this couple only has this book. So it was okay. It wasn't my favorite, but I really enjoyed the representation and the struggle in sexuality. It had a great topic that they talked about. And then I read Big Swiss. I didn't like it. The whole time I was reading it, I was saying, what the actual fuck? Every page I'll be like, what am I reading? It was just not my thing. I was not the target audience for that book. I didn't like any characters. None of them. And then I read Reckless by Lauren Roberts, which is the 2nd book in the Powerless series. I didn't like this as much as I liked the first one. I think the first one is much better. This one felt like nothing happened. Nothing was happening. This could have been 100 pages and it would have said the same thing. The same things would have happened. I really hope the next book is a little bit better because I really didn't love this one. It was okay. I enjoyed the ending though. The ending was fun. And then I finished the Shepherd's King duology and I read Two Twisted Crowns. So good. So good. I think this is even better than the first one. It's so fun to read and it was so different, and the couples in this book was even better than the first one. Oh my god, it was enemies to lovers. Oh my god. And the writing of these books is so good. And then I read Manacled by Sen-Lin Yu. And if you don't know what Manacled is, it's a fan fiction of Draco and Hermione from Harry Potter. And it's so sad and so disturbing. I enjoyed reading it. It was so long though. I think it could have been a bit shorter. And they're making it a book next year. So I'm really excited how they're gonna do that because they can't really mention Harry Potter, so I don't know how they're gonna do that. But I enjoyed it. I just didn't love it as much as everyone else because people like say it's the best thing I've ever read. I don't think it was for me, but it was good. It was fun. It was fun to read. I mean, it wasn't that fun. It was sad as hell. And then I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. It was okay. I didn't love it. It's a very big age gap. It was slightly bit too insta love and cheesy for me. Like, they fell in love immediately. And I need a little bit more of a slow burn to enjoy a romance. And a bit too cheesy for me. But I can see how some people really like this one. But I think my personal taste wasn't the perfect book. And then I have The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I really enjoyed this book. Such a good plot twist. It's a thriller. It's very famous. Everyone knows about this one. But it's so good. It's appropriately hyped. It's so interesting and so different, and I made everyone I know read it because I needed to know their reaction to the plot twist. And then I read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This was my first Kristen Hanna book ever. I loved it so much. I cried so much. I didn't cry, I sobbed my eyes out, just to put it into perspective, but it was so good. Historical fiction about the Second World War in France. So good. So many important things. I cried so much. Oh my god. And then I started the Windy City series, and I started obviously with Mile High. This is for sure my least favorite of the three, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. It was a little bit too long, I think. This was a hockey romance. These are interconnected standalones of different sport romances. I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite. A couple of things I would have changed, but the rest of the series, so good. Then I read Great and Precious Things by Rebecca Yarros. It was my first book by Rebecca Yarros that was in the Fourth Wing series. And I really enjoyed it. It was so different. It was childhood friends to lovers. So I didn't expect it to enjoy it because I usually don't love childhood friends. But I enjoyed this one because it was a really like forbidden romance, enemies to lovers. There was so much more to every character. There was like a layered thing. And it wasn't just a romance. It was a literary fiction book with romance in it. There was so much more. Do you know what I mean? And I really enjoyed it. It was quite emotional. Really enjoyed it. And then I read The Paris Apartment, which is another thriller. I enjoyed this one. It was a little bit slower to get into, like the beginning was a little bit slow and I wasn't completely sure about it, but I really enjoyed the ending. The ending surprised me. I couldn't predict what was happening and I really enjoyed that. I recommend reading this. I love the characters. The characters were so interesting to read about. And then I kept going with the Windy City series and I read The Right Move. So good. So good. This was a basketball romance, grumpy sunshine, fake dating, and forced proximity. Like, actually perfect. I loved it so much. I really enjoyed both characters in this as well. Then I read The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This was a palate cleanser. This is a silly little cute, superficial, cheesy, witchy, spooky romance. Nothing more. Nothing deep happened in this. So it was a okay book, but you know, it was fun to read, I guess. And then I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. It was my last Emily Henry book that I hadn't read so far. And I enjoyed it. I don't think it was my favorite at all. I don't love second chance romances and this was it. But I really enjoyed the setting of the book and like the found family of the friend group. I enjoyed how it was talking about growing up and growing apart with your friends and like how life changes. I enjoyed that, but I didn't really care about the couple. But I enjoyed the book. It was okay. It was good. Emily Henry's writing is just that good that even if I didn't care about the couple, I still enjoyed the book. And then I read Sharp Object by Gillian Flynn. I didn't care about this book. I didn't like it. I thought it was disturbing, very predictable. It's a thriller, so I was supposed to be like, oh my god, who is it? Who did it? Like I knew. On page 5 I knew. So I was bored because I knew who did it immediately. It was very predictable for me. So I didn't really love it and I just didn't care. But a lot of my friends enjoyed it very much. So I think it's like personal preference. And then I read the first book in the Clockwork series. It's actually called The Infernal Devices. The Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare, and it's called Clockwork Angel. And I really enjoyed this one. It was so nostalgic to go back to the Shadowhunters world, but this is set in like Victorian London, so I really enjoyed that. There's a love triangle, and I know everyone hates love triangles, but this one is the best love triangle. And then I read Caught Up, which is the third book in the Windy City series. This is my favorite so far and I loved it so much. This was baseball romance and it's age gap and single dad and she is the nanny. So she's like, this is like the sport romance version of Heartless and I loved it so much. It was so good. I loved the characters. The two main characters, so good. And then the next 5 books I read were in the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. And this is like a dark romance. FBI agent dating a serial killer. And he is a serial killer profiler looking for a serial killer that he doesn't know is his girlfriend. So it's very interesting, full of plot twists, full of crazy things happening. And it's just so fun and so unique. I've never read anything like this before. And I support women's rights and I support women's wrongs. And yeah, I got nothing else to say. I loved it. The last book I think was my least favorite because the ending was a little bit crazy. It was a little bit unrealistic. A lot unrealistic. But I didn't care because I was having fun. The whole series, I just had fun reading it, so I didn't care that it was a little bit unrealistic at the end. And then next I read the second book in the Infernal Devices series called The Clockwork Prince, and I loved it so much. I think I loved it even more than the first one, and the characters, the story, and it's so nostalgic to go back to this world that I was in when I was a teenager. Strongly recommend the series. I know. Oh, she's not in the same place. I'm aware. I'm going to tell you the last 3 books that I've read, but I've read them in Italy. That's why I couldn't film back in London. I own the physical copies of all 3 of them, but obviously I'm not in London, so I'm going to tell you here. I read them on my Kindle. So first of all, I read Hopeless by Elsie Silver. I finished the Chestnut Spring series. It was okay. It was marriage of convenience, engagement of convenience, fake dating. It was okay. I really enjoyed the setting because I knew all the couples and I loved the fan family aspect of it. I just loved that family and the people, but I didn't really care about the couple that much. There was just not enough plot for me. And then I read Play Along by Liz Tomford. Do you know when I told you that Caught Up was my favorite? Yeah, not anymore. Play Along was a 5-star perfection, like a perfect romance book. And perfect romance book for me, it's so rare. It was, I guess, Marriage of Convenience. They got married in Vegas when they were drunk, and it was so good. It was perfection. Every trope ever, it was there. Found family aspect of it, sport romance, interconnected, standalone, literally perfection of a book. And last but not least, I read Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare, another 5-star book. Back to back, 2 5 stars. Incredible. One of the best series I've read this year. I loved it so much, and I cried so much at the epilogue, and I can't wait to read everything else by Cassandra Clare now. And that's all the books I've read this year. If you're still here, you're a real one, as if you watched that whole thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I made a book talk account if you want to go and check it out. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great start of the new year. I'll see you in my next video. I love you. Ciao. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.